You have to choose one person from all of human history to shit their pants at a time so as to change the course of history as much as possible. Who would you choose, when and why?
True fact, Australian PM Robert Menzies almost shat his pants during talks with Nasser on the Suez Canal in 1956. He had to stop the talks, which led to a considerable loss of British influence in the region. Perfect example.
True or fact, current Australian PM Scott Morrison shat his pants in 1997 in a McDonald's restroom in Engadine.
There was a plaque to commemorate the event there at one stage.
What?
Aussies, man, best not to question it, the answer only ever raises more questions.
There was also one Aussie PM that went for a swim in the ocean and just fucking vanished.
Then we named a public swimming pool after him.
Oh yeah, that's the dark irony I'm looking for.
The guy on our $10 note was once convicted and sentenced to death for forging banknotes.
You're joking. Ugh, I fucking love irony.
And also the saying, do the Harold Holt. Which means to fuck off and disappear.
Isn't the airport in Sydney named after someone who died in a plane crash?
Jesus, I just learned so much more about Australia than I've ever known.
Another Prime Minister, Bob Hawke, used to hold the record for the fastest time to down a pint of beer for a while as well. We elect some weird people.
Can I have more info on this? Already hate Scott from marketing, but this can only add flavor.
Basically that. Dude shat himself at Engadine Macca in 1997.
After a rugby match, he stopped at Macca's for a burger and took a Whopper in his underpants.
Alright, which of you Redditors time traveled after reading this question to prove a point?
Well, it was Fukin, one of you's.
Disgusting.
Maybe he was getting his Menzies.
The guy who invented pants.
Fuck, this is a bad idea, catching my crap like that by joining my hosen into one piece so I could put it on easier. Fuck it, I'm going into the kilt and gown business with my brother.
Damn it, I could be wearing a kilt to work.
Gavrilo Princip right before he shoots Franz Ferdinand. But who knows, maybe Franz motorcade makes another wrong turn and gives Gavrilo a third chance at shooting him.
I mean, the universe seemed to have it out for the old Archduke that day. If Princip had shat himself, he probably would have run into Ferdinand in the loose or something.
I swear, if the days leading up to WW1 were a movie, I'd hate it because of the amount of plot conveniences. Edit. This is episode 1 of a wonderful animated summary of the month leading up to the Great War. Many of the events are told extra dramatically for effect, but as far as I can tell, they are accurate, though it does focus more on the actions and interactions of people more than events themselves. It left me with genuine chills of just how close we were avoiding the Great War as we know it. EDIT 2, correction. EDIT 3, correction. EDIT 4, addition.
Sometimes people speculate about time travelers going back in time to try and prevent the world wars. I usually respond something along these lines, and saying that the amount of occurrences that were so convenient to line up and create the world wars almost makes me think that people from the future have actually already arranged things. Perhaps unbeknownst to us, this particular outcome is the best one, lol.
I'd like to think that a bunch of time travelers have already tried to prevent World War I, but the universe just course-corrected a bunch of times because the past can't be changed or something like that.
If you like reading, check out the book November 22, 63 by Stephen King. A time traveler goes back to stop JFK assassination, and time fights back.
That's the thing, if backwards time travel does exist, you probably wouldn't actually be able to change anything.
I think more accurately, if backwards time travel exists, it doesn't in your past. And by what I mean by that is when something is changed via time travel, a new timeline is created different than your own, and so it didn't happen in your own past and changed nothing. In the new timeline, shit happened as it always did.
I don't think that war was ever going to be stopped. At best, it would have been postponed. The tensions that led to World War I were simmering for decades before finally boiling over.
Listen to Dan Carlin's hardcore history blueprint for Armageddon. The way he talks about it is unreal. Edit, my first award, holy hell, thanks. You guys are unreal. First time ever getting an award, and I'm up to 4 now. Thanks everyone.
Dan Carlin is such an incredible storyteller.
I had zero interest in WW1 before my first listen of Blueprint for Armageddon. I've re-listened to it at least 5 times since, and even paid for it once they stopped being free. Best 12 hours of history content ever produced in my opinion.
I was thinking the opposite. Franz shits himself and doesn't leave the house palace that day.
It wouldn't have mattered. The assassination was only an excuse. Prior to this, British Empire and German Empire spent 15 years at least in an arms race preparing for war.
It's mind-boggling to think about how happy people were when the war officially started. No change in history could prevent WW1, at most it'd only delay it.
I can't help but think that this is a bit reductionist. They were absolutely on a collision course, but if the Japanese didn't beat the Russians in 1907, then there would have been zero chance that the UK and Russia would have been on the same side of anything. They'd been sizing each other up over competing territorial claims in Asia for decades. France had been a pariah diplomatically for much of the preceding century. They didn't get any help in the Franco-Prussian War because literally everyone hated them. It was only when Russia really needed a friend that they reached out to France, and suddenly France was seen as a way to counterweight Germany. It's entirely plausible that a German-UK-Japan alliance would have resulted if Russia was still seen as the big threat in the East. A string of allies to constrain the growing threat. Germany to the west, the UK's holding in India to the south, and Japan holding down the Pacific. When the Russians utterly collapsed by defeat abroad and revolution at home, the only real rising threat left was Germany. So, the UK decided to patch things up with France and Russia. It's very likely that World War I would have been a series of smaller conflicts, or that the geopolitics of the thing could have created a reshuffling of chairs to result in something way less destructive. But, the geopolitics, the personalities involved would have ensured that any number of pretexts would have triggered mobilization. And once mobilization happened, then war was inevitable because calling everyone up was so expensive and disruptive that they wouldn't be able to call everyone up for months after they disband, meaning that they'd get steamrolled when their neighbors see their guard down and decide to part them out like they had done with Poland.
Marilyn Monroe during her blowy vent photo.
It would be equally as iconic.
Yeah, but for very different reasons.
And a different assortment of fans.
Oh no.
Oh yes.
Shit hit the fan.
Abraham Lincoln shits his pants 10 seconds before being assassinated, causing him to turn around to go change and thwarting John Wilkes Booth.
Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 shitting myself.
I immediately heard that in his There Will Be Blood voice magical.
I second this, but mainly because I'd really like to see Daniel Day-Lewis act out a dramatic pants-shitting scene.
I'd really like to see Daniel Day-Lewis act out a dramatic pants-shitting scene. Knowing full well that it would probably be the final one of dozens of previous pants-shits, to ensure the method.
Day-Lewis during the filming of Abe, is on a strict diet of prunes, apples, and baby laxatives. The costume department resigns over shitty working conditions.
Look what they've done to my pants.
Better yet, John Wilkes Booth shits his pants so loudly it causes Ave to turn around.
Sounds like someone just made an In My Pantsipation proclamation.
I'd go for Henry Rathbone, a military captain that sat next to Lincoln. Lincoln turning would do nothing unless he's secretly a ninja or vampire hunter. But Rathbone acting a little sooner might have done something. As it stands, he only turned at the shot and failed to apprehend Booth, who stabbed him.
Lincoln was tall and an amateur wrestler in his youth.
Could he punch a bullet midair?
You can't?
Imagine finding out that you're the only one who can't catch a bullet bare-handed through a Reddit comment. Awkward.
Funny, I was going to suggest that LHA shit his pants when he tried to take his shots, saving JFK.
LHA. Lee Harvey Oswald.
Plot twist, Lee Harvey Oswald shits his pants moments before the assassination, but it still goes ahead unchanged.
Neil Armstrong for the history of lols.
Houston, we have a problem.
I have jettisoned the payload.
I already used up my free award, but I want you to know this made me cackle like an idiot, and my roommate gave me judging looks.
When the lunar lander is shaking and Armstrong's stomach is quaking.
True story, when Buzz Aldrin stepped out of the lander, he stood there on the steps and peed into his suit before jumping down onto the surface of the moon. He wanted to be able to say that he was the first person to pee on the moon.
There's a fair chance he did. You can't exactly go when you want in a space suit. I'm pretty sure they wear nappies. I think it would be ox to just shit like that, but I guess we can't rule it out.
The more important question is who shat their pants in the past, which has changed history the most significantly to get us to where we are now. Edit/u/SCReddit asked which of these lucky top-level answers won and OP granted their wish, and even though it wasn't a person, I have to say I like /u/Mr_Martyr's answer of that pangolin that was caged above the bat. Talk about butterfly effect. The Black Plague killed a lot more people, but that sounded like it was caused by multiple different independent cases, whereas COVID appeared to be able to get narrowed down to one source. Maybe some epidemiologists out there could chime in on the matter.
Not shat their pants, precisely, but Napoleon lost the Battle of Waterloo because of hemorrhoids, supposedly. His hemorrhoids were bothering him, so he delayed riding to battle, giving his enemies time to recoup, and lost the battle as a result. I don't know if we can say definitively that his hemorrhoids caused it, but the French had the advantage the morning of June 18 and were defeated that evening. Edit, it was pointed out that the French did not have as great an advantage as I remembered, and that the hemorrhoids didn't delay the battle, simply prevented Napoleon from riding his horse and commanding the battle. If you're interested in learning more about it and other similar stuff, I read it in Napoleon's Hemorrhoids and Other Small Events That Changed History by Phil Mason.
Napoleon lost the Battle of Waterloo. Because of his watery loo.
Someone actually tried to assassinate Napoleon by planting explosives in his fancy linoleum-floored bathroom, but the explosives malfunctioned and instead of getting Napoleon Bonaparte, they just got his linoleum blown apart. Citation needed.
Genghis Khan, in one of the many life-threatening things he had to go through on the steppes of Mongolia before unifying the various Mongol hordes, conquering damn near all of Asia and Eastern Europe, fathering enough children to leave a distinct genetic marker in damn near all of East Asia, and generally anything to do with being possibly the most deadly motherfucker in all of human history.
Genghis Khan's son Ogidi Khan never gets the credit he deserves. Now if he had shit himself and ending up not going hunting and drinking himself to death, he would have probably have continued into Europe, some say his death is why the Mongols left Europe.
Ojedi's big cup always cracked me up.
Caesar shits himself just after leaving his house on the Ides of March. Edit: I've been using this account for 4 years and this is now my most upvoted comment. Excellent.
Wouldn't they just stab him on the 16th of March?
Maybe, but their first presumption if he didn't show up as planned would probably be that he'd been warned about the plot. They might well be too frightened to try again, or perhaps they'd collapse into infighting trying to find the mole. In any case, even if Caesar is killed subsequently, it probably changes things massively. Subtle differences in perception of the event could have huge consequences for the motives, public and private, of people like Octavian, Anthony, and so on.
Oh my god. You could write a hilarious comedy about this. Caesar shits himself and can't make it. The entire conspiracy group begins to spin new conspiracies about who might have told him and what wrath may be coming because of it, and winds up tearing itself apart, leaving Caesar totally fine and unaware of any of this. Edit: Et2 Butte?
Written by the Coen brothers. It reminds me of Burn after reading. A whole lot of tension throughout the movie, making you think it's building to a great climax. And then by the end of the movie, nothing really happens, and the characters are just left confounded. Edit: or, alternatively, a Quentin Tarantino movie. The alternative events in history really sounds like his thing, just like in Inglourious Basterds, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, I'd like to think it's a mix of the two. From Caesar's side it's very dry, everybody takes everything he does after the shitting very seriously, and reads way too much into nothing. Caesar causes events to spiral into chaos by accident, since everyone is watching to see what he will do and overreacts, and he doesn't know anything is going on except maybe wondering if people are catching on to the fact that he shit himself. From the side of the conspirators it's more like a Tarantino film with some crazy murders, and a few events that just get way out of hand as everybody tries to make sure the finger isn't pointing at them, and they're not the one left holding the knife. I love it.
R/writing prompts.
A goldmine of potential OC may have been discovered. Every few days, just ask to imagine history if at some point an historical actor shat their pants during a major historical event. Neil Armstrong shits his space pants as he steps off the ladder of the LEM. George Washington shits his pants while crossing the Delaware River. Winston Churchill audibly shits his pants while giving his blood, toil, sweat, and tears speech.
He was about to leave on a military campaign the next day. After that he would have been gone for several years.
Now the guy yelling Sic Semper Tyrannis shits himself after yelling it before the stabbing, and everyone with their knives are like WTF, and Caesar gets away. It ends up something like modern day in RoboCop 4 or 5. The sequel to RoboCop I made in my high school Latin class, where RoboCop goes back in time to save Julius Caesar, but when he gets back to modern times everyone is wearing togas. He goes to the policeman that sent him back, and they're like, "Do you see what's happening?" And RoboCop is like, "Yeah, togas everywhere," and the cops are like, "Not the worst part, they ruined the greatest movie of all time." And RoboCop is like, Point Break? And the cops are like, "Yeah, and show him a trailer for you Bundy." I think that's it, it was whatever Point Break in Latin is, and we remade the Point Break trailer, but if it was Roman times. Had shit like Archiani yelling "I'm a Roman legionnaire" in the back of a car, lol. So RoboCop has to go back in time and kill Julius Caesar. Caesar is by his pool and RoboCop shows up, and is like, "In the name of the law, Sic Semper Tyrannis." Puts hella bullets into Caesar, who falls into the pool, and shouts ET to RoboCop. Edit, link to the video.
This is the best movie plot I have ever read.
Hitler shitting himself during his Reichstag speech. I mean, for all we know he did anyway.
Yeah, it all came out of the front.